Hello, and welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Whether you're going for that next promotion, looking for a job, or making a career pivot, I'll teach you how to navigate it all so you can have the career you want. This is episode 65. How do you stay up for a job search or maybe even a career? Because, when you're doing it, you're kind of always on, right? There's that feeling that you've got to be your best, do your best, say all the right things. And I suppose there's some truth to that. But finding what you need, getting there so that you can show up as your best, sometimes just feels hard, right? It feels like it's just going to take sheer willpower. And willpower comes and goes, right? There's days you feel like it. There's days you don't. I posted a quote from Chuck, the artist, that said, amateurs wait for inspiration, professionals show up and get to work. And I do believe there's some truth to that. If you're waiting for inspiration to apply for that job, then you might be waiting a while. So I want to talk to you about how you can find what you need so that you can show up anytime and do your best anytime you want to. It'll be like turning on a faucet, because you're going to know exactly what to do, and not only what to do, but what is specific for you. Because what motivates you may not motivate somebody else. And so that's why when you read all the tips on LinkedIn, it all feels so conflicting, because what works for one person may not work for you. And that's okay, because I'm going to teach you today how to find the thing that will work for you and work for you every single time. And what I want to suggest to you is that it's this interesting combination of grit, grace, and flow. Let's start with grit. Angela Duckworth is probably the most renowned person when it comes to this idea of grit. When she first started studying, she was studying people at West Point. And her study involved taking a closer look at their training program known as Beast Barracks. And here's what she had to say. This is a quote at the beginning of her book. No matter what the domain, the highly successful had a ferocious determination that played out in two ways. First, these examples were unusually resilient and hardworking. Second, they knew in a very, very deep way what they wanted. They not only had determination, they had direction. She came to call this grit, this combination of passion and perseverance. And I can see how that can play into a job search, for sure. Let's talk about flow, because flow sounds like the opposite of grit. Does in my head. I don't know how it feels to you. But here is how flow is defined. I think I found this on a psychology website or something. But Stephen Kotler is actually a great source for information on flow. I've been following him for a long time. But flow is being fully immersed in a feeling of energized, focused, full involvement and enjoyment in the process of the activity. It doesn't really sound a lot like grit. It sounds very different. And that's where I think grace comes into play. And the definition I'm using of grace comes from the Oxford Dictionary, and it is defined as simple, elegance, or refinement of movement, an effortlessness of movement. Wouldn't it be so cool if your job search felt effortless? Wouldn't it be so cool if you had the determination and the direction and the immersion into a job search to the point that it was actually enjoyable? Flow is also described as being entirely in the present, so that you can be more creative and productive, happy, and able to handle the challenges in front of you. Man, that sounds like a job search to me, because a job search has a way of uncovering all kinds of vulnerabilities. Some of the stuff that you thought you had handled long ago, imposter syndrome, a low self-esteem, things that just you seem to have managed, somehow rise to the surface again in a job search, or when you're dealing with a toxic work environment, suddenly all that stuff that you thought was good to go is right in your face again. That's why this combo of grit, flow, and grace can help you in your job search. So let's dive in a little bit deeper to this. How do you make this work for you? How do you put grit, flow, and grace into play? Listen to the questions asked in a flow study. Participants were asked to rank themselves on these statements. Strongly disagree, all the way up to strongly agree. Here are the statements. I was challenged, but I believe my skills would allow me to meet the challenge. It was no effort to keep my mind on what was happening. I felt competent enough to meet the high demands of the situation. The challenge and my skills were at an equally high level. These are elements of flow state that what I find super duper interesting is that you could actually choose any or all of these statements in advance. Because here's the deal. The secret to everything is in your brain. The secret to grit, the secret to flow, the secret to grace, that effortlessness, that simplicity. It's all in your brain, because everything that's been created, whether that's a new product, a new service, a new role, it all started in someone's mind as a thought. And I bet you, if you start to get some awareness around your thoughts and you look back at your career, because this is helpful, because our brains are always wanting to look back for evidence in the past that the future is possible. The problem is most of the time the evidence that we find is not helpful. It's the time you did get fired. Oh my gosh, what if I get fired again? Oh my gosh, what if I get laid off again? What I want to challenge you to do is to pick new sentences, to pick thoughts that create grit, that perseverance and passion, that determination and direction. Pick thoughts that create flow states, like feeling competent enough to handle the high demands of the situation. And pick thoughts like, this is going to be easy and simple. That's grace, right? That effortlessness, that ease. That's the challenge here. And it all starts in your own brain, just like everything starts in your own brain. One of the things that has inspired me over and over again, and even to talk about it in today's podcast, is my coach, Brooke Castillo, and her podcast, The Life Coach School, episode number 157. I think it's called Create New Thoughts or something like that. Go look it up. Anyway, the idea here is that we create our lives with our thoughts. Brooke has this really great way of explaining it, but you know that is a truth that's out there from a lot of people, right? Our thoughts create our reality. We can choose the meaning that we attach to any given circumstance, and meaning starts in your own brain. What you see and your experience of the world around you is determined by your thoughts. So managing a job search and doing all the stuff isn't the hard work. The hard work is managing your thoughts so that you create thoughts that you can believe about your next role that motivate you to take the actions you need to take. It's managing our thoughts, being aware of the thoughts that are negative, that don't serve us, that create bad feelings, and instead managing your mind in a way that helps you create thoughts that you can believe and that it feels better. That's how you know a thought is serving you. It doesn't have to be positive or negative as a label. That's an easy way to understand it. But you know the thought is working for you because it's something that feels better. That's it. Our feelings are those clues that tell us if the things we're thinking are working or not. So here's the process. Pick new thoughts and sentences and then rehearse, practice, and believe them ahead of time with as much imagination and emotion as possible. I know that if we were to dive into the brains of athletes and authors and musicians, they are rehearsing and practicing and believing ahead of time. They are seeing that golf swing. They're seeing that pitch, that basketball. They're visualizing the ball going through the hoop. Are you visualizing yourself saying yes to that role? Are you seeing yourself sitting in that desk, talking to that team on a Zoom meeting? What are you doing to give yourself the pictures in your mind, thoughts and pictures that enable you to feel great and do the things that you want to do? That belief in advance. Belief sounds difficult because sometimes you think you just have to decide and believe hard enough. Belief is just a thought you keep on thinking, friends. That's it. And you believe it until you feel it. And then you act on the feeling. And the action creates the result. That's why this is a faucet that you can turn on anytime you want. Because once you create the thoughts that you know give you the feelings that drive you to action, you can pick those anytime you want to. You really can. You don't have to wait to feel good to pick a new thought. You pick a new thought to feel better. Don't get it the wrong way around. It all starts with thoughts. So how does this play out? How does this play out in your job search? Well, number one, you're not going to worry about annoying a recruiter when you reach out because you're going to be bold. If you just decide that this is what you're going to do, you'll just do it. There won't be any worry. There won't be any such thing as a waste of time. There's nothing that frustrates me more, and I guess it's a combination of frustration and heartache a little bit, because so many people are commenting on posts on LinkedIn that they don't want to waste their time doing that interview. They want to have all the information up front so that they don't waste their 30 minutes talking to someone. Really? Is your future self who landed a great role, do they think any of those 30 minutes was a waste of time? Probably not, because you got the job. And even if it took lots of 30-minute conversations to get there, the future you that learned and got value and accumulated information and interview skills and all the stuff that happens in those conversations one after another, your future self does not care. I've got clients going through the rigorous interview process at Amazon, and they've got their eye on the prize. So that loop interview, totally worth it, because they're living from their future self, the person that's landed the role, who actually doesn't think that investing 8 hours and 8 weeks or whatever it takes is a waste of time. You'll do whatever it takes. The time you have to invest, the energy you have to invest, the money to get that new resume, or hire someone to help you and teach you how to do interviews well, it'll be totally worth it. It's an investment that you're going to recoup so fast. You will have that next role. That is how this plays out. What do you have to think to feel determined? What do you have to think to ignite the passion that you have for that next step in your career that feels so perfect and logical and the exact thing that you want? You can decide if your job search or your career is a grind or a series of states based on believing ahead of time that what you want is possible. Go back and think. Grit, that combination of perseverance and passion, flow, being in the moment in a way that's effortless and only focused on that moment, so that you can have this higher level of productivity and creativity and just effortlessness, the grace and the simplicity in a job search. Man, it's possible. So get to work. But work on your brain, because that's what's going to be the thing that will create the result that you're looking for. All right. Until next time. If you like listening to this podcast, then you are going to love my program, Job Search Field Guide. This is a unique opportunity. I offer group coaching alongside a 5-step process to help you land a job quickly. So I hope you will join me in Job Search Field Guide. This is going to be revolutionary to your career journey and your job search, and you get lifetime access. So find it at elissashuck-careercoach.com, and I will see you there.